Hello everyone, Derek Johnson with Tatango.com. I'm here at Mobile World Congress 2019 in LA with my good friend Eddie DeCurtis. How you been?
Good. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. Man, you have been in mobile forever.
Oh, too long.
Almost as long as I've been alive, I bet.
1993.
Not as far.
Actually, 1993, I started on 6th Street in a small little reseller for paging.
In LA?
In LA, and then I moved to PageNet LA, and then that got me started in 1993.
So you might have to explain to some of our viewers and myself, what is a pager?
Picture SMS for only your phone number on your waist. Okay? You carry around a little device. Every now and then you see them in the TV shows now with hospitals. The doctors go beep, 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 and they look down. That's a pager.
That's it. Okay.
So back then, that was the in thing because the phones were the size of a suitcase.
And that was like your thing, like pagers.
Yeah, that's where I started in the telecommunications business in 1993 in LA.
And they were like a big thing back then.
PageNet was the largest paging company in the world eventually until 1990. I left there in 98, and that's when I got more involved in mobility.
Who used page? I can see the doctor, but was it everybody?
Well, at the time, it was 10 million people had it.
Okay.
Right?
In the United States?
In the U.S. In the United States, well, all over the world, but 10 million, PageNet had 10 million in the U.S.
Okay.
And then other companies, there was other companies out there. And then I left PageNet and got more involved in mobility, but I got involved in mobility like wireless and SMS and all that in Europe because I moved from PageNet to Metromedia International based in Vienna, Austria.
Did you move there?
Yeah, I moved there.
Okay, so LA to...
No, LA to New York, New York to Plano, which is where PageNet was corporate headquarters, and then I moved to Vienna.
Okay. And what company was that?
That was Metromedia. John Kluge, who started Metromedia, at one time he was the richest man in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
From pagers.
From pagers and then cell phones.
Okay. Yeah. What originally, was it just a job or did you know you want to get into mobile?
I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Okay.
So when I went to college, I wanted to be a pilot.
Where did you go to college?
In Everett.
Okay.
Right? And then I wanted to be a pilot. And then I decided that I didn't like flying.
That's good. You fly a lot though now.
Now I sit in the back of the plane.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't like, I didn't like to fly.
Okay.
And it wasn't for me. And I was looking around, and then I moved out to LA, and I was looking for a job, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, hooked me up with this smaller reseller for paging," and I just kind of like, "Oh, this is pretty cool," and I started learning like the back end office systems and all that, and they were a reseller of PageNet, the company.
Okay.
And then the PageNet hired me, and I went to work for them in Santa Monica.
And you've been doing mobile ever since.
Ever since.
And explain maybe, because I know a lot of our viewers think that mobile is maybe just the cell phone or just SMS. Explain like all of the different components of mobile that you've touched.
Wow. So everything from pagers to again, the cell phones, right?
Yep.
So that's where
the devices.
Yep. And it went from amps and deamps to TDMA, CDMA, GSM, now LTE, soon 5G. From 1990s to now, it's just what we're seeing is revolutionary. Like we never even thought about some of the stuff that's going on now back then, right? When we started getting into mobile data, you saw CDPD, which was AT&T's version, and then it was WAP, and then the market just kept morphing into a more data-centric model as these networks moved to a more data-centric network. So what you see in the industry today is, I mean, if you asked me back in those days, I will be surfing the internet. First of all, I remember the first day I ever went on the internet, and I went to whitehouse.com, and it was not the White House.
I remember that back in elementary
school. In all honesty, this is 1996.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, right? That was the first time I ever been, and the web browser was
on your computer. You went.
On my computer, and the web browser in the lab. It was in the technical lab within PageNet because no one had internet access. They did.
Yeah.
And we were in the technical lab, and I said, "What is it?" And explaining the internet. And I was like, "Well, where can I go?" And they go, "Well, there's the White House and there's a couple of websites." So I typed in, and I go, "What do I like?" They told me how to do it. And it was the first time. It was literally 1996 was the first time I had literally ever been on the internet.
What back then, did you see mobile kind of going the way it's gone, or were you just completely blindsided?
I was in the middle of a reorganization at PageNet and was working with some very, very smart people at McKinsey and Company.
The consulting
firm. The
firm.
consulting firm, because we were reorganizing the company. We were trying to get leaner because the 96 auctions happened, PCS was rolling out, Sprint was rolling out, the CDMA network, PrimeCo, all these old companies that have merged into Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, et cetera. They were starting to roll out, and we were looking at, again, how do we make the company more lean? How do we make the company more efficient? And what's our argument against mobility, like cellular?
Yep.
And since paging worked at a certain frequency, it could penetrate buildings real well, and that was our argument. Well, you'll at least get notified when you're inside of a building. You know, PCS services won't do that because it's at 8.
I remember that doctors. That
was our argument. The company spent a ton of money on narrowband PCS licenses that worked, and it worked great for two-way paging. But the company bet all their money on voice paging again. So
voice paging.
We went from voice paging, died, to digital paging was the big thing, and then we were looking for our new French fry, let's say. What are we going to make? So they spent a lot of money in the whole voice paging. It was called Voice Now.
What is a voice paging?
Derek Calming.
Oh, okay. So exactly like it
utilizing, narrowband PCS licenses, right? And I'll never forget, I was sitting next to a very smart individual from McKinsey who just came back from Europe and said, you know what they have in Europe? I said, what? And they go, SMS. And I said, what's that?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, right from your phone, you can type out a message and send it to somebody.
Did people have phones and pagers? Like, was that?
People carried phones and pagers. Okay. Because SMS wasn't ever, it took a while for SMS to be big in the United States.
Yeah.
So I go to Europe, learn about the mobility they're doing there. SMS, the StarTAC was already out, the Motorola StarTAC. GSM was the predominant, it was the only technology. I come back to the U.S. and, mobility's just started rolling out. So I was involved in building networks. So I was working on the network build for Suncom, which eventually became AT&T. And the talk at the time when we were rolling out SMS was the carriers were petrified that it was going to cannibalize their voice. So all they talked about was, we want to charge for SMS and make it not as ubiquitous as today, because we don't want to cannibalize our voice, because our voice minutes generate all our revenue.
And maybe people watching this video, most voice is free now in the US. So
back then, nothing was free.
Okay.
So I remember, $1,500 phone bills on average. I mean, it was just
cell phone bills.
Cell phone bills, because I was working.
So they then came up with this new technology. And they didn't want it to cannibalize the existing revenue streams.
Yes. So then Dan Hesse from AT&T, when Dan was running AT&T, comes out with the digital one rate. The digital one rate was, no matter where you were within an AT&T market, even though AT&T at the time didn't have nationwide coverage, it had affiliates and roaming partners similar to today, it was one rate. You would pay the same rate regardless. There was no roaming. Basically, you did away with roaming within the U.S. because in the U.S. you did have roaming. Same thing with messaging. But messaging, you only had buckets. 100 message, 50 messages, 500 messages, etc. Fast forward, Metro PCS comes. And Metro PCS rolls out, I forget what it was, let's say $50, $5 more for unlimited messaging. Well, now it's unlimited with so then we became unlimited messaging. So then everybody follows suits. So that's how now we're in an industry where everything's unlimited messaging, and it's really not unlimited. It's just the networks get efficient, the cost to service that drops, so you know roughly what someone's going to cost you every month. And of course, there's your outliers, right? That's why we never had a WhatsApp problem. Right? Because messaging was always considered. Unlike Europe, because when I lived in, and this is a broad example, I live in London and you live in Madrid, you're on Telefonica, I'm on Vodafone, I send you a text message, and it costs me $1, yeah, I'm going to find the cheapest way to do that. Right? I mean, people are, they just don't want to pay $1 to send Derek, hey, call me. Right? So that was, that's been like the industry. So I get into SMS. During my time building these networks, I was working with a company called Mobile. Okay. They were in the forefront, and we were utilizing dial digit triggers, which is an SS7 thing. So it was like a pound, and a number. Okay, I remember. Yeah. And what you would do is we had a partnership with Yahoo at the time, and we would do #1, and it would bring all your Yahoo stock quotes. Via SMS onto your little Nokia gray screen. Yep. And I was involved in putting all the SMSCs in and working on the SS7 stuff. And I was very lucky that I was working for and with some of the most brilliant people in just telecommunications. Okay. I mean, some of these guys literally wrote the book on SS7, wrote the book on wireless, just brilliant people. And that was my MBA, right? Were the carriers making money per message or buckets during that time? Yes, so there was a money per message, incentive for the carriers to do all this because the more messages, the more revenue. That's right. Okay, that's right. So they were like, okay, let's not cannibalize it. Now data was starting to roll out. Okay. GPRS data, WAP data, CDPD, the carriers were moving more and more towards the data thing and trying to drive more ARPU. It's all about increasing average revenue per user of the customer. And breakage is great. Yep. Breakage is phenomenal, right? Yep. And if one carrier did it, the other carrier did it. You got to remember, at the time, there wasn't 4 big guys. There was hundreds. Okay. The licenses, local guys, regional guys. The countries were broken out into MSAs and BSAs, MTAs, metropolitan trading areas. I mean, so, and there was, the A band, the B band, the C band, the D band, the E band, the F band. And people, you were buying a license for, so that was the beauty. It was all about competition, right? Yep. So, yes, you had the big guys. You had the Bell Atlantics. You had the AT&Ts, the Sprints of the world, the Verizons, before Verizon, I said Bell Atlantic, or the Bell properties, right? You had all those guys, and then you had visionaries like Jim Dwyer, who petitioned the FCC. So individual companies, like small companies like me, can become a wireless carrier, right? And then, again, now everybody grows out, they build out the network, competition, prices coming down, Metro comes to the market, really pushes the market towards more stability, unlimited. Was there a real good time to be like a wireless carrier? Because I remember our bills were huge. We used to say every time we met guys who worked in wireline, and wireline's always been around, right? It's been around since Alexander Graham Bell. Yeah. So and they used to call us wireless guys cowboys. Yeah. You guys are out of your mind. There's a story, I don't know how true it is, but when Primeco launched, they told everybody it was free service for 6 months. Okay. Cell phone service. Just free cell phone service, unlimited cell phone service, free, everything for 6 months. This is how the story goes. Because they didn't have a billing system. Okay. Right? So this was just seat of the pants. Seat of the pants, entrepreneurs. See what works, really they did have a crazy guys, right? Just let's do this. Let's build these networks, right? Was there a lot of money coming in during this time? Tons of capital coming in. Okay. And then the bad auctions happened, right? Okay. The Metro auctions. Everybody got involved buying licenses that were overvalued. Okay. And they had to file bankruptcy. Okay. Right? So Metro files bankruptcy. And a number of them did, and they fought the FCC based on the value of the licenses because the licenses weren't worth what they were worth when they purchased them. Okay. It was a big deal, right? The market kind of stabilizes. Adults start getting hired. Start running companies like a company. Of course, the big acquisition between Southwest and Bell and AT&T for the mobility side was huge. now the T-Mobile Sprint, so you're starting to see a little bit more consolidation. There's still a number of regional operators.
Yep.
I don't know what the exact number is anymore.
There's a lot of just like Western wireless.
I remember back in the day at one time, I think the last count there was like 162 carriers, right?
Yep.
In the U.S., think
Yep.
about this. And the rest of the world is about 3 to 4, 5 if you're
Interesting.
if you're a big market, right? Now you're starting to see that list still consolidate
Yep.
more and more.
I think it's like 30 or something. I don't know.
No, it's more than that. I think it's something like 80.
80?
Yeah, I think there's still like 80 carriers in the U.S. I don't know.
Well, I guess if you're reselling.
No, I'm
or
talking
like
about
people with
like
direct lines.
Union.
Okay.
There's Union. There's a GCI in Alaska.
I think maybe 30 that support short codes. That's all. That's where my thing. But there's so
That's
many
true.
wireless carriers that are just smaller than that.
They're
even.
small. I mean, 5,000 subscribers.
Wow.
So I like that though. I like the fact that
Yeah.
you could still be an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right? You could still do things, and I get it. And the competition's tough because you got the big guys, and they can crush you with a single rate change, right?
Are the small guys using the networks of the big guys?
Yes.
Or they're just reselling.
So they opened up. No, they opened up. It's not free, but it's virtually free. It's mutual forgiveness.
Because the government.
No, I don't remember exactly what happened. I kind of think that was what it was, but you're getting nationwide coverage now.
Yeah, because the carrier, the big guys want somebody to show that there is competition.
Yeah.
They don't want them that big though.
Yeah, you're showing, and they're not roaming at the rates. I remember roaming rates.
Yeah.
Of 25 cents a minute.
So roaming, you go outside of your hometown.
Yeah. So I go to Dallas, so let's say Jackson, Mississippi.
Yep.
It's 25 cents a minute.
25 cents a minute. Yeah, so you're having a business call, it could be. Mm-hmm. And then SMS they had roaming on top of the SMS fee.
Everything, yeah.
So were they making a ton of profit during then, or was the operations?
I couldn't answer that. I didn't look at people's. I mean, they were public, and I just didn't look at the financials.
Okay.
I'll give you an example, though. I'll tell you how lucrative roaming is for these carriers. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, and you can anybody can look at it today. They can just literally open up AT&T Wireless's, quarterly or annual report and look at the wireless roaming revenue.
Is that still going on or looking back?
No, like this was a couple of years ago because I had a bet with somebody.
Yeah.
And I said AT&T's international roaming revenue.
Okay, international, because you don't have roaming in the United States.
No roaming in the U.S., but their international roaming revenue was $15 billion a year. And they went, impossible.
Yeah. Well, with WhatsApp and all the...
And then, of course, I say, well, they're publicly traded. Let's
go look. Yeah.
And we go look.
Roaming fees.
On
the wireless,
On wireless is $15 billion. It's big business.
Yeah.
These carriers make tremendous amounts of money.
Yeah.
Tremendous amounts of money. But there's also a lot of overhead. There's a lot of people... these networks aren't smart enough to work on their own.
Yeah.
They still need those really smart guys sitting in those rooms, fixing things. Things break, codes go bad. I mean,
it's a big business.
It's a business. It's a huge business.
Yeah.
It's a huge business.
300 million people in the United States.
300 million people, but think about it. That's nothing. I know carriers that have more subscribers than the population of the United States. Look at China.
Oh, yeah.
China Mobile has 900 million subscribers.
That's wild.
Think about this.
Are they the only carrier there? Like, is it?
No, there's 3 carriers.
3 carriers. Okay.
There's 3 carriers. So, all right, ready?
Yeah.
China Mobile has 900 million.
Yeah.
China Telecom has 325 million.
So the population
which is
of
the
the U.S.
smallest, and China Unicom has somewhere in the middle. I want to say 600 million subscribers, 700 million subscribers.
That's insane.
It's insane. It's insane. It's just like you said there. You go, how many?
Yeah.
Right. I was talking to a carrier in Indonesia, and we were talking about RCS specifically, and the guy asked me, "Do you think the brands are going to show up?" And I said to him, I go, "You have 197 million subscribers.
The brands.
You're bigger than countries.
Yep.
I think the brands are going to show up."
Yep. No, that makes sense. Okay, so we've gone from pagers. You then went to Interop.
Yeah.
I know some people at Interop. What were you doing then?
I was head of. Well, originally I was vice president of Asia sales.
Okay.
And then
And Interop does what?
They were a platform provider,
Okay.
a solutions provider. So prior to me going to Interop, I was with Iris Wireless. I ran the big ICV in the U.S. And prior to that, I was with VeriSign.
Okay.
And I was responsible for solution sales globally, but I was heavily focused on Asia. So I had a lot of experience dealing with the Asia and Pacific operators. So I went to Interop. So I started off working on projects for them in Asia, and then moved to more of a global. So then I ended up with global responsibilities.
And working for the carriers, are you talking about, like, are you building their infrastructure?
We were providing SMS and messaging infrastructure.
Because they just didn't want to do it themselves, or was it?
Well, no, there was a number of providers. Carriers don't do anything themselves. They buy the platforms.
Okay.
Right? So they buy an Ericsson, or they buy a Nokia, or they buy a Huawei or ZTE.
Yep.
Similar with messaging platforms. Now it's Maven or even Interop, because they still have those legacy
So they're not
products.
building it most of the time.
No, very few carriers build their own platforms.
Okay. So that's what Interop was going out and helping and selling this platform.
It's a hard undertaking. Ex-Vodafone.
Okay. So then you went from Interop to Tintech.
And then I went from no. I went from Interop to. I did my own thing.
Okay.
So I did my own. I was a roaming startup.
Okay.
It was as successful as 99.9 other startups. It failed miserably.
Okay.
Learned a lot.
Yeah.
Left there, went to Mosaic Solutions. Mosaic was more about mapping.
Okay. On the phone.
Yeah, no, and mapping, just carrier networks in general.
Okay.
My expertise in the carrier business, my understanding of carrier networks and RF and helped there. They're a lot like an Open Single. They just got bought by Uglia, the speed test company.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm really happy for them. I worked with them for a few years, trying to bring that software, the measuring and all that kind of stuff out to the market.
Yeah.
There was no issue with them. The issue, we sat there, we both looked at it and was wondering if this is a need or a nice to have, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, Tintech was talking to me.
Okay.
And I'm like, I really don't want to get back into messaging.
Yeah.
Right? I like to learn new things.
Yeah.
Right? I like to learn new things. I want to know about certain. I don't always want to
do the same thing over and over.
Over and over again. So Syntec called me up and said, "Hey, we're gonna do an acquisition. We'd like you to be the president of the company. Would you come on board?" And we talked, and I took that job. So I went over to. So then I left Mosaic and I went over to Tintech, and I was running their the RCV business, which was the intercarrier, the P2P business. Okay.
So you were connecting the carriers.
Yeah, so you're connecting carriers via a hub. And,
because Verizon people want to message AT&T, and it doesn't work as easy as you think.
Yeah, so back when this first started, so the messaging business, I've been involved in messaging since my days at VeriSign all the way to today. And been involved in so many pieces of it that the things we did back in my days at Iris are the things that allow Twilio to be in business today. Okay. The things we did back then allow a lot of these companies to be in business today.
Yep. You were building the infrastructure.
We were not only building the infrastructure, we were building all the rules. Okay. So guys like myself, Bill Dudley, Chris Wright, Dan Lai, and a handful of others out there, all drove the industry at that point. VeriSign being the largest provider. There was Cineverse, there was Iris, there was SAP or Mobile 365 or Informatics, whatever you want to call them. There was SingleSoft. There was all these different companies, right? And we all worked together. And we built this ICV because we had disparaging technology. Because CDMA didn't talk to GSM. GSM didn't talk to TDMA. So a real smart gentleman out of Logica wrote the code for SMPP. And SMPP IP and took everything off the SS7 network and moved it to IP and just normalized the traffic, right? So a Verizon could send a message to a GSM carrier, AT&T and TDMA can send a message to Verizon.
And previously,
there were islands amongst themselves.
Okay, because I remember you could only text with AT&T.
Yeah. So I have a funny story. So back in 1999, there was a handful of us in a number of different companies, all thinking the same thing, all saying we need to send a message from one carrier to another.
Makes sense.
Makes sense,
yeah.
right?
Now.
And it makes tons of sense now, right? And I can literally introduce you to this woman because she tells the story all the time. So one weekend, I'm playing around in the system, and I send a message from a CDMA carrier to AT&T, which was a TDMA carrier.
Okay.
And then I said, well, let me see if I can send one to a GSM. So I take the AT&T message. I have an AT&T phone. I have a GSM phone. It was PowerTel to be, they don't exist anymore. They're now part of T-Mobile. So I sent a message from an AT&T TDMA handset to a GSM handset and vice versa. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So Monday morning, we're having our staff meeting, and I'm in the staff meeting. And I said, oh, you want to know what I did this weekend? And I told everybody.
Yeah.
And my head of marketing said, should we make a press release about that? And I literally looked at her and said, nah, no one's going to use it. That's what I said.
Yeah.
I think I'm like, no one's going to. This was like a test. Just fooling around.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, look what it is today. So...
And that's the reason SMS took off in the United States.
That was the hockey stick. So
Okay.
there was a company called Mobile Spring. I think it was Mobile Spring. Mobile Spring won singular and Sprint. Okay. From an intercarrier standpoint, they had their own platform. Okay. Then they became Real and so on. And they're now still Real, right? Okay. Real networks. Mobile Spring really had the first. So they had a partnership with a company called Illuminet. Illuminet was bought by VeriSign, hence VeriSign. VeriSign ended up fronting it, basically. Yeah, but it was in VeriSign's network.
Yes.
Only because, it went from being a nice to have to being...
We got to have this.
You got to have it, right? And it needed to be on, very strong infrastructure, with a reputable company, That's why these carriers...
all messaging was passing through those.
Yeah, so there was a number of us. So there was VeriSign, which is where I was at, then Iris Wireless, of course, and then there was now SAP, Cineverse, exactly. So there was all these different hubs, and we all interconnected. And there was the peering agreements between...
So it wasn't just one hub, it was multiple hubs, but you all interconnected.
Multiple hubs, and everybody had their own customers, right? Yeah. Because there was a lot of carriers, but it was also global. Right? It was also
global too. Okay.
Yeah, because you could have used the interconnect agreements, but they were very expensive. Hence, $1 a message.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Or
to go international.
Fractions of a penny of a message, right? To send international. So that's the hockey stick. You literally see the hockey stick. Messaging takes off. Right? Years go by. I get a phone call. I was at Iris Wireless. I get a phone call from the guys at Verizon. They want to be able to send 10-digit messaging. So the 10 DLC, they wanted to do it from their Fios VoIP phones into the wireless network. Okay. At the same time, we were also talking to, I had just left VeriSign, and we were talking to AT&T or SBC at the time to figure out how we can do American Idol. Because remember, they had the exclusive rights to American Idol, and people would literally, watching in front of their TV. So how do we figure out how to make the home phones be able to text? That was just, we were trying to think outside the box, make texting more ubiquitous and more unique, just everybody using it for everything. Yep. So at that point, they called, I'm like, sure. So we literally changed the peering agreements, that we changed the best practices. We made all these changes to allow 10-digit, as long as it was a 10-digit dialable phone number. That was our argument. Yep. It had to be dialable. Someone had to be on that other line. You didn't care. Then you could send a message.
Send an SMS.
Send an SMS message. Well, I leave the industry, and the industry goes crazy.
When was it? What about?
So I left that part of the business when I went to work for Interop. Right. I didn't want to be involved in intercarrier. It was basically becoming a race to zero.
So you essentially set up.
Not me. It was. I would like to take the full credit for it. Yes, it was all me. No, A number of us. A
Yep.
number of us working in conjunction to grow the ecosystem.
So you did the P2P stuff first, the person-to-person
There
between
was no
carriers.
A2P. A2P
Yep.
was not allowed. Well, A2P, we knew A2P back then was called bulk messaging, and you weren't
Yes.
allowed to do it. And the minute you found it, you blocked it.
Yep.
Okay.
On the carrier side. Yeah.
And then they rolled out the shortcode,
Yep.
common shortcode gateway, and that was to handle A2P messaging. However, these guys became smart. They were like, well, I can send it from any dialable 10-digit, and that put net number in business, right?
Yep.
Because
Just buy numbers.
net number had the eSPID. That was the way, because remember, in the intercarrier world,
Okay.
there is the routing's done internally. Okay?
Yeah.
We do a dip. Well, what happens is each provider does a dip to Newstar or did a dip to a net number. Net number would return the SPID. The SPID, which was the ID for the carrier, right?
Yeah.
The SPID would tell you who to route it to. So who to route it to? Well, there was only a handful of providers: Syniverse, VeriSign, SAP, right?
Yeah.
So if it was an AT&T subscriber, it went to VeriSign. If it was a Verizon subscriber, it went to SAP. If it was, I'm trying to think of a Syniverse carrier back then.
So they essentially figured this out.
But we would know because we kept internal lists. We just needed to know what the ID was.
Okay, like the home address for a phone
we didn't
number.
care about the MSISD, and we just cared about what it returned when we did the dip to the SS7 network to route it, right? Well, for these VoIP providers, these new codes, whatever you want to call them, they became an eSPID, so E and a number. And then we did the exact same thing. So all the routing was always done internally within the ICVs. They're all routed internally, okay? But these guys figured it out that, hey, if I had an eSPID, which was free at the time, and I can get phone numbers, and I could tie them to that eSPID, I can send messaging against those phone numbers. Okay, that's great. You have an app on your phone, all right, a messaging app, or you have a smart TV, whatever. You can use it for a number of things. Well, when you start opening up things like that, then all of a sudden there are the bad actors. And I blame the industry for this. I blame the industry for allowing it. I remember the days we started seeing spam, we literally turn off those binds. I mean, nobody risked it. There was no reason, to this day, I still believe there's no reason that Adaptive and CloudMark, and I think they're called Proofpoint now, should be in business.
Yeah.
If we did our job.
Necessity now.
It's a necessity now. Yeah. If we did our job, or if the ICVs did the job that they were supposed to do, back then they would have kept the spam off the network. They would have kept the A2P traffic off the P2P network. I'm a purist when it comes to that.
Yep.
I don't believe there should be any A2P traffic. I don't believe the 10. I don't even and I don't even believe in this 10 DLC program.
Yep.
If you want to send an A2P message onto a carrier's network, there's a way to do it. It's called shortcode.
Yep.
Here's the problem with that, though. I can get on a network in a 10 DLC in less than a week.
You need 10 seconds. If
10
you really
seconds.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
I don't need 180 days or whatever the number is now. You would know better
6
than
to 8
I.
weeks. It's a long time.
To approve a campaign, to do all that stuff, to get on a network. And that's...
It's the path of least resistance.
It's the path of least resistance. It's the easiest way to find it. And then what ends up happening is you do have some very, very good actors, right? You got some good people that want to use it, right? No problem. And they're just trying to get their product to market quickly.
Yep.
I understand that. The problem is you have some very, very bad actors.
Yep.
I mean, I don't need Ray-Bans. I'm telling you I don't need Ray-Bans. And that's the problem.
Yep.
All right? So now comes full circle RCS, right? So RCS is the evolution of SMS. So RCS is SMS 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0. RCS is the only answer, right?
To solve the problem.
No, RCS is the only answer, period, going forward.
Yeah.
Because
you're saying there shouldn't be A2P on long codes.
So here's what's going to happen. So as these networks go full IP, there is no more SMS.
Correct.
All right, so the Telstra just announced they're turning off their 3G network. Vietnam just announced they're turning off their 2G network. AT&T already announced they're turning off their 3G and 2G. Well, they already turned off the 2G. 3G's next. Verizon's 3G is going to go. And so you're going to start seeing these 3G networks being turned off. Once they turn them off, they're now on LTE and 5G.
Okay.
And once they're on LTE and 5G, it's a full IP network. Well, the only messaging protocol for an IP network is RCS.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
So what they did with RCS that's different that they did for SMS is they kind of split them up, right? So you got your CPM, converged IP messaging, P2P core stuff, and then you got your MAP, messaging as a platform. You have to be approved to be into the MAP. So that stops, I would think that would stop a majority of the spam because you're going to know all your brands. Yeah. Brand verification, you're going to know. But then you have your P2P stuff, and the problem with the P2P piece is that since it's IP messaging, you can have a client on your computer. Yeah. Similar to iMessage now, right? Yep. You have a client on your computer. There are going to be smart people, smarter than me. Yeah. You know, some kid in the Ukraine is going to build an application that can flood
just like
the
they do with
network.
iMessage.
Yeah. They can build an application that will flood the network.
Spam people.
So now you're going to use spam solutions within the P2P side, not on the A2P side.
Correct. Okay.
However, how do you do brand verification becomes a big issue, right? And it's not companies like LivePerson, right? So I have 20,000 brands, 250 of the largest enterprises, publicly traded company, comes with a lot of trust and reliability that comes with that, right? So my brands are the trusted brands. My brands are the Citibanks.
The big enterprises,
you know? So you know when I'm sending a message, it's honest legit, because who wants that bad press, right? It's not, carriers are not worried about companies such as myself. Correct. Carriers are worried about such companies that, and I'm not trying to, I'm not, in no way, shape, or form trying to blame Twilio, right?
Yeah,
in any way, right?
But the ease of use of it.
It's the Twilio's, a company like a Twilio where Twilio sells it to a brand who sells it, or Twilio sends it to a third party who sells it to a brand who sells it to, and finally when you eventually get to the person sending the message, it's that same Ukrainian kid,
you never know.
Sending the message in the name of the brand that bought that connection. So a very smart individual, I said, well, how do you stop that, right? Like how do we get, that kind of protection? And
but also allow small businesses to use it because
small business,
it can't be just for enterprise.
I'll give you an example of a small business use case, right? But how do you stop that? And they were like, oh, blockchain. I mean, so there's smart people thinking about it today, which I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know anything about blockchain, but it sounds good. Right? So let's talk about small businesses. RCS is not about my 20,000 brands, my 250 of the largest businesses. It's not. It's about Doug Dry Cleaning. I'll give you a great example. I was talking to a very good friend of mine in a foreign country who runs the messaging business for that carrier. He only has 1 million subscribers, and it's a very, very wealthy country. And he's like, Ed, I'm not worried about my international traffic moving to RCS. Okay. I want my 15,000 local businesses that are sitting in this city to be able to communicate with their customers via RCS. Yeah. Think about that. I have 20,000 brands. He has 15,000 brands in a tiny country in the Middle East. Tiny. Just right there in this capital city. That can receive the benefits of messaging with their consumers. Right?
It's going to be a huge boon to economies.
It's going to be a revenue channel. It's going to be a revenue channel unlike anybody's ever seen. Because if I can send a message to my dry cleaner, hey, is my dry, and they can send me back an RCS message with my ticket, and I could pay for it and all that. That it's all about conversational commerce, which is why I'm here at LivePerson. I've been involved with TinTech. I was on the A2P side, P2P side. I know the business. Aggregation and hubbing and all that. That's great, but it's literally, I've been a huge supporter of RCS for the last 3 years when I was asked to take on a leadership position within the GSMA Leadership Council on RCS. And I literally told Jill Cooper she was crazy and it was going to go nowhere. And then
Jill's gonna love this video.
No, she knows. I tell the story all the time. That she was crazy when she called me up, and when I was at Tintech, and then within 3 months I was drinking the Kool-Aid and completely bought in. I see the future of RCS now. I see that RCS is now going to be a carrier solution. It's not going to be a downloadable app as it was 7 years ago.
Yep.
So it has to go RCS. They're putting standards around it all. I think that's very, very important. I'm a standards guy.
Yep.
I'm a firm believer in them. I wish everybody
follow the standard.
I wish everybody would just follow the standard.
You could have standards.
That would be good. That would be a positive approach to RCS. But it's not just about the delivery mechanism. It's about what's being delivered. It's all about conversational commerce.
Is that why you went to? Because a lot of people in our industry, when you went to LivePerson,
couldn't believe it.
Because you're a network guy. Down the weed. This is. Well, really, LivePerson essentially at the start was a website chat company, and then kind of they moved into mobile. Why did you accept that job?
All right. So 3 years ago, I get the phone call from Jill.
Okay.
I get the phone call from Jill at the GSMA asking me to attend a meeting in Boca at 3C.
Okay.
Myself and John Duffy go at it.
Okay.
Go at it.
John Duffy's next here. So.
And we're brothers. Yeah. Today we're brothers.
Yeah.
But we went at it.
Why? Because he's a big proponent.
He was a big proponent, and I said, you guys are all crazy.
Okay, so he was, RCS is the bee's knees.
Bee's knees, and I was like, here we go again. You know what you're talking about. Yeah. Just shh, be quiet.
I heard you were really fired up.
I was like, let the adults in the room speak. You don't know what you're talking about, right? And we went at it.
Yeah.
3 months later, John Duffy and I are on the exact same page.
On what page?
On RCS.
Okay, you're all bought in.
I was bought in.
Okay. Why? What changed?
Being privy to the information I was privy to, and I don't mean it was like private.
Yeah.
It was just the way the industry was looking, the standards. I started getting involved in the standards.
Okay.
I started looking at what the overall solution was going to be. I'm like, okay, this can work. And I kept saying, however, this is not going to work without the brands.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And I became a big advocate of, okay, guys, well, let's not break it like we did with MMS and SMS. Let's do this right. And I said, because it doesn't matter. There is no business model with P2P.
For the wireless carriers,
it's hard
for them to make money on RCS.
And guys like Duffy and a few others out there, they were only focused on how are they going to make money. And I was focused on how am I going to protect the carriers. I'm a carrier guy.
Yes.
Deep down, I'll always be a carrier guy.
Yep.
So my job is to say, okay, the carriers right now are nothing more than a dumb pipe, and they sit outside the ecosystem. I need to bring them from the outside into the ecosystem and have them participate in the full revenue model, right?
Okay. Yep.
So from beginning to end, the carrier needs to participate. Why? They spend billions of dollars on the network. They spend billions of dollars a year maintaining those networks, and they spend billions of dollars acquiring those customers.
Yes.
Think of it as a television network.
Yep.
Right. So I'm NBC, and I say this during my presentations, and you've been in a number of them. But let's say I'm NBC, and I have the Super Bowl. Apple or Google, the largest companies, market cap in the world, right? $1 trillion balance sheets, come and say, I know it's $2 million a commercial. I know, but I don't want to pay $2 million a commercial. I want to pay $1 million a commercial because I'm the largest, company in the world, and you have the most viewers.
Yes.
And I, as NBC, as a network, would say, go away and go to the next brand who wants to pay me my $2 million. Yep. This is the only industry that if I send you more traffic, it gets cheaper, not more expensive. You have more subscribers, it's cheaper to send to your network. Mm-hmm. It's unheard of in the ad industry. Like if you have the hit TV show, it's more expensive to advertise on that television show than it would be at a 4:00 in the morning infomercial.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
This industry has it backwards. So how do I get the carriers back into the center of the universe and back in the ecosystem where you need to be the brands, right? Now you got the TV channel, right? So you got RCS. up to 30 megabits a message. I mean, there's all these positive things about RCS. Well, now we got to bring the brands. It's all about bringing the brands. Well, let's not break it because there are other channels the brands can use. The brands aren't stupid. WhatsApp is... so there's been a lot of internal debating around pricing models.
Yes.
Okay?
For RCS.
For RCS. Yes. So I did a big, huge presentation at Verizon's, at an RCS lab at Verizon, coming up with multiple different pricing models that would fit the industry, that would actually put the carriers back into the center of the universe. The carriers have a problem they have a challenge in the United States when they start talking pricing. It's very, very difficult for them because of collusion laws. So they got to be government regulation. They got to be very, very careful. They can't be price fixing.
Yeah.
So it's up to the industry to help them, to guide them, right? To guide them along. But it's also up to them to say, hey, we're going down the right path, right?
Yes.
So I believe for RCS, there needs to be a transaction fee. We want to move the current A2P traffic over. We want to move the current A2P traffic over.
Yep.
There needs to be session based, right?
You mean the long code type stuff?
Yeah, all the long code type stuff. There needs to be session based, but just think of it as IP messaging. Think of it as it's not short code, long code. It's a brand to consumer. It's conversational commerce, right? So the brand is communicating with the consumer. One message, two messages, three messages. We're now in a session.
Yep.
Well, again, give somebody an inch, they take a mile.
Yep.
If I can send a 30 megabit message down that pipe, and I'm in a session, and that session hypothetically is a penny.
Yep.
I'm now taking advantage of the carrier's network, right? So the carriers need to know there needs to be a surcharge for large messaging, a lot of carousels, videos, etc. And here's the big thing: if I buy something, right? If I'm in a commerce, if I'm providing an outcome, right?
A revenue outcome,
whatever. The carrier should participate in that.
Okay.
If I pay with my credit card, there's 50 different clearinghouses
within the messaging ecosystem.
Within the messaging ecosystem. So here's a great example. I like using this one because we're very big in auto dealerships, right? I'm Mercedes-Benz, and I'm talking to Derek, and Derek wants to buy. Derek wants to see the new S series, right? And me and you are communicating via RCS. And I'm sending you videos and carousels and option models and all that. And then I say, hey, Derek, why don't you come in for a test drive? You say, I'm going to come in for that test drive, right? You set up an appointment, you come in for that test drive, you buy that car. That car's over $100,000. I could tell you right now, that dealership at LivePerson is paying me for that outcome.
Well, it's the same as Google with their ads. A Mercedes ad is going to, because of the cost per acquisition, lifetime value, it's going to be much more. And right now, the model for SMS or messaging is just 1 cent per message, and the carriers don't get to be involved.
The carriers are a dumb pipe. Let's just be honest.
So is that why LivePerson?
So LivePerson's whole idea around it is, okay, so with the way LivePerson, so the average A2P messaging is 6 cents, right, globally. The average LivePerson messaging is $1.80. So I tell the carriers, which one would you rather contribute in?
Why is it $1.80?
Because it's on the value. It's based on value.
Because LivePerson is more transactional. You're helping customers.
I'm helping brands. I'm helping brands and consumers easily communicate in the model of conversational commerce. Right? Commerce is conversational. Hi, Eddie, I want to buy something. Hi, Derek, I want to buy something. Or, hey, I'm having a problem. Can you help? It's all conversational.
Much more valuable than your Uber's outside.
Yes.
Or
but
here's
even
your 2FA.
That's valuable.
Correct.
Even that's
from
valuable.
A security or from
a security standpoint, etc.
Just different kinds of value.
There's different values, and there's different pricing for that different value. So if Derek buys that $100,000 vehicle, how much is Mercedes-Benz going to pay me for that?
More than a cent.
More than a penny. Now, does the carrier want that penny, or do they want to contribute in that value chain? Right? And that's where I think the carrier needs to sit. So why? Again, so I become this big, huge advocate of RCS. I decide I'm going to leave TinTech and I'm going to get more heavily involved in RCS. I believe you and I spoke about it. that I think this is the future. I don't go to Mobile World Congress. LivePerson goes to Mobile World Congress. Somebody sends me Rob Lacasio's presentation.
Because he kind of came out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Out of nowhere, sent me the LivePerson presentation. And I read through the presentation, and then I was on the phone with that individual, and I said, oh my God, they're going to own this space.
So he got it just like you got it.
He got it just like I got it. And I said, this is some company. And then that same person sent me an email and said, would you have a call with Rob Lacasio? This is all you. You did this. That was you. Well, you sent me the...
Well, I think everybody
You sent
in
me the
audience,
presentation, you sent me all the stuff, and then you said, hey, would you do a...
Yeah.
Would you take a call?
Because he needed the background, the person that knew the industry, that knew the players. And he was coming in with a fresh perspective on RCS.
Really fresh.
You knew where everything was buried and where...
Yeah, I knew where the bodies were buried.
Yeah, exactly. So good combination.
So you said, would you take a call with Rob Lacasio? And I said, I would love to. And so we spoke. We had an hour plan. We spoke for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
What are you doing? What's your plans? What's going on? He said, hey, would you... And I like telling this story because it's such a great story. He said, would you get on a call in about 2 hours? I have another meeting to go to. I want you to talk to some other people. Sure. That goes for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Right? So basically his whole day was talking to me. I said, well, I'm doing some things. Let me see what I could do.
You were still at Tintech.
No, I was just about to leave. I was just
yeah.
about to leave Tintech. My last day was May 1st, and this was March.
Okay.
May, late February, early March, if I remember. And I said, you know what? How about I just fly up to New York, and you and I sit down, and we'll have a conversation. So my old dime, my own everything. I get up, I get on a plane, I fly to New York, I meet him, we have dinner. Then the next day, I go into the office, and we sit down, me, him, and a number of his executive management. We talked for 2.5 hours. And he looked at me and he goes, I want you to do this here. I want you to be here.
Yep.
And it was the easiest yes.
You're like...
No, I was completely bought in because what they differentiated themselves is with Maven and with Maven RCS and Discovery, because you got to remember, this industry is disjointed, okay? We have Apple on one side, right? And the carrier's cheapness enabled Apple to do what they did, right? iMessage, remember, hey, back in the day, the carriers are spending millions and millions of dollars a year on capacity for SMS because it just keeps growing. Apple comes in and says, hey, I'm going to take all your messaging off. They went okay, and then, they make the deal with the devil, right? And that's why we got to be real careful about remembering, and I'll look in the camera and say this, RCS is not a Google product. Right? But the issue is discovery. Now, how do I find the brands, right? So there's no business model, P2P. It's just going to be there. And then there's, what do we do with, the whole business messaging? I love that name, business messaging. It's what it is. And I think it's important that people can discover those brands. There's some great brands out there. But if you look at the chatbot channels and you look at the chat stores and all that, it's very, very difficult to navigate all that.
Yeah, you have to know
you have to know what you're looking for. What Maven and Maven RCS does.
Maven's the product of
Maven is the solution.
Okay.
Right? It's not even it's a lifestyle change. No, think about this. It's literally built on intent. Remember, what did we do for 20 years? Take intent-based communications. My phone doesn't work. I need to buy a dress. I need something. It was all based on intent. Having all those conversations and creating an AI that is based on intent and not just, I don't know what else you can call it. It's just extremely powerful. So when you're talking to Maven, and Maven's there to help you, and Maven's there to make your life easy, and the conversation is this, hey Maven, I'm in LA. Where should I go for pizza?
And this is all within the chat.
It's all within chat. Right?
And on the native chat on the phone.
On the native chat within the native client on the device. And it doesn't matter if it's an Android messaging device or a Samsung. It works on both.
Yep.
Oh, and I hate to tell you, it also works on Apple Business Chat.
Yep.
So
you've
now,
done everything. Yep.
so now, exactly, it's seamless. So you can go from a Samsung device to an Android device, and Maven knows who you are, because Samsung Discovery does not work on Android Discovery, and Android Discovery does not work on
Correct.
Samsung. Right?
So it's
Maven works on both.
Okay. So you say going out for dinner, and then I think the interesting part is you pass then that conversation off to a business that is looking for somebody to go out to dinner?
Yeah, or
Okay.
no, or hey, Maven, I would love to go to a great French restaurant in LA.
Okay.
So Maven will go out, and let's say there's French restaurants in the bot channel store, hypothetically,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Let's say maybe we have French restaurants, our customers, or maybe a restaurant concierge service,
Yep.
right?
Or Yelp or something. Yep.
Yelp is another one.
Yep.
Right? So Maven will go out and pull all that information and put it into a format that you can read and then select and spin through.
Within the same chat.
Within the same chat. And then once you pick up, oh, I want to go to Shay Derrick.
Yep.
I clicked on Shay Derrick. It will go out, reach out to Shay Derrick, and then bridge that conversation together in another stream.
So I could start talking, hey, 7 o'clock.
I want to come there at 7 o'clock. They can start asking questions. And then Maven could even go, oh, you want to go to a French restaurant? What time?
Yeah.
How many people? Set that all up and then provide it for you.
Yep. And then you're adding the additional, you're bringing revenue to businesses.
That's right.
So then that revenue flows into
back
the carrier,
and shared with the
you
carriers.
Guys, and the brand is happy.
And the brand's happy because they're getting business. Think of it as a locksmith.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I locked myself out. Hold on.
I got,
I have a list of where are you? Are you home or at work?
Very similar to like Google, but instead of Google search like on a mobile web, you're doing it within messaging, and it's smarter.
It's smart, exactly.
It's built for messaging.
Exactly,
it's
because it's I want pizza, not I want Pizza Hut, right?
Yes, yep.
Or I need a locksmith. Are you at home or at work?
And everything is happening in messaging now.
And everything is happening in messaging.
It all makes sense.
Kills the apps, kills everything. That to the point where there was a great demo I saw for the locksmith. It was like, I'm locked out.
So easy.
Are you home or at work? I'm home. Oh, I got your location.
Yeah, because you know where they are.
Because you know where they are, right? It's a network-based service, right? You know where they are. Is this the correct location? Yes. Okay, what type of lock do you have? And Maven's asking all these questions, then going out and bidding it out to a bunch of locksmiths who can come back. And now you're seeing their picture, their ratings.
All within the same channel.
All within the thing. And then you select the locksmith. They connect you directly with the locksmith. The locksmith says it's going to cost you $100. You could accept it, pay right there. Locksmith, and you have the picture of the locksmith who's going to show up at your house. So, you know some stranger's not going to walk up, right? You have the picture of the locksmith. I mean, that is a very simple use case. A carrier use case is, let's say, in a roaming scenario, right? T-Mobile now, I land, T-Mobile says, welcome to Spain, and gives you all the information. How about T-Mobile, I land, it's a nice picture of the Spanish flag, and then right there's a button. There's a quick button that says, upgrade to LTE speeds.
So you don't get charged.
So, or you don't have 2G speeds.
Yep.
So there's an upsell component. I mean, the power of RCS, because the content is so rich and the communication channels are so broad, it's going to move the carrier out of being the dumb pipe into being the center of the universe, with companies like LivePerson and others are going to help drive that business to success. Now the big 800-pound gorilla in the room is carriers need to move. They need to make decisions. They need to launch these services. They need the vendors need to make sure they're following the standards. They need to make sure their products are working.
And speaking of both those, I got to get you off to the RCS lab.
Yes, that is correct.
I love talking to you, obviously. Again, Eddie DeCurtis, now at LivePerson. What's your title? Vice President of Network Distribution.
Yep.
It's quite the title. Again, Derek Johnson from Tatango.com here at Mobile World Congress 2019 in LA. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.